Let's talk about the question of integrity, and this was actually spoken about by the EACC CEO Twali Barak, and he put it very well. They were talking about the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and the National Council of Churches. They have formed a partnership now to drive an anti-graft crusade across the country. This is what the CEO had to say.
How come that? Assume that you have a poultry farm. You have a poultry farm, and you want to put a manager in your poultry farm. Then you are told, hii kijana alikuwa shamba kule lakini aliiba akafukuzwa hapa akafukuzwa. Will you employ him? No, will you employ him? You won't. Then why having a suspect who is to run a county with billions? There must be a proper mechanism that if we know there's a red flag about somebody, you say, look, we are dealing with a crook here. And you've seen it. You've seen it. It has happened in this country where some people who are given this position and they could not finish their term. Something went wrong. So are we going to allow people with questionable characters to be given responsibility of running counties with billions? Or should we have a mechanism of trying to make sure that at least we sieve and get the right people?
And we have agreed as churches that if a politicians or Harambes are held, let the money not be announced. Let the money be put in the receptacle and counted, because the Bible is very clear on this matter, that when you give with your right hand, don't let your left hand know what the right hand has given.
All right, and Member of Parliament for Ugunja, that's Opiyo Wandayi, also wants MPs or any legislator or any leader mentioned in a graft case in charge not to be allowed to vie for office. Honorable Tandi, what is the best mechanism to deal with this issue of integrity?
Trevor, I think this proposal by my colleague, the MP for Ugunja, I support it. But as somebody who's taken time to go through the justice system in Kenya, I think this may not be one of the best solutions. You know, we have a problem in our system. We have a problem with the investigative systems, processes. We have a problem with the prosecution processes. We have a problem with the judiciary itself. Because this is the reason why my colleague is thinking of this law, is because these cases take many years to be resolved. So what can we do, for instance, to ensure that when these cases are up, how fast are they resolved? And even the people investigating the cases, are they able to give to provide in courts facts that would allow these cases to be concluded very fast? I think this is really where the problem is. And I think barring somebody, I'm one of the people who even believe that even in the area of academics, because we now have a law, elections, one of the elections law says that if you don't have a degree, you cannot run for parliament. Personally, I'm opposed to that, because I think we need to empower Kenyans to make decisions on some of these things without barring somebody. Barring somebody means that we are not we don't have an effective system.
Yeah.
What we need to do is we need to work on, for instance, on these corruption cases, we need to work on improving and making efficient the investigative, the prosecution, and the judiciary angles, so that these cases are resolved within a particular time. The reason why they delay, and these lawyers will tell you, the reason why they delay is because some of these issues have not been properly managed. So I don't think it is right to bar somebody, because barring somebody, let the people decide. The people who are going to vote should know that if I am corrupt, I don't deserve to get their vote.
Yeah. Because
if Kenya still think that even if you are corrupt, you should be elected, then I think there's something wrong. So I think this bill, this law is good, but it is not going to be the solution to the challenges we have. Because if the DCIO is unable to provide facts on your allegations, then you will not be convicted.
Yeah.
So we need first of all to work on a serious investigation process, so that we get convictions. It's not just enough to charge somebody, because we've seen that people have been charged, but in the end they've been left. The judges have left them to go scot-free. So I don't think that charging somebody is sufficient.
Yeah.
Let us improve the prosecution, let us improve the investigation, because the investigation is where the problem is. Actually, I was talking to some DCIO officers recently, and they told me that they want powers to prosecute. They said we are the ones who investigate.
Yeah.
We hand over these issues to DPP, and DPP refuses to present some of our facts to court.
Yeah.
So we want to be given powers to prosecute. So there are many issues that need to be. In fact, I'm sponsoring a legislation to give DCI some powers to prosecute.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I've already presented my bill to Parliament, to the Speaker. So I think even though my colleague has made a serious attempt to address the issue, I know these frustrations. These frustrations emanating from the fact that we've had, for instance, governors who have been charged in court and they still go to their offices.
Yeah.
I think that's really where my colleague, the Honorable Mondai, is coming from.
Okay.
But on my side, I think we need to do much more and address some of those weaknesses which exist in our current processes, prosecution processes, investigation processes,
Yeah.
so that in the end, when you are charged, when I'm charged in court today
Yeah.
for corruption,
Yeah.
within the next 3 months, I should have been convicted.
Okay.
If the evidence is there.
All right. Omari, does this bill have legal ground? Because there's always the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. And how do you reverse engineer? So you are charged in court and then you are not convicted. You're set free because there's no evidence. But the time when you were supposed to run, you had been stopped from running. So what do you do at that point?
Trevor, allow me to put what very many don't want to accept with. We have never put proper personnel in proper offices. The question of integrity is not a religious question. We are not talking at morality.
Yeah.
We are talking about ethics and integrity as from the law perspective. The CEO for EACC and the church-led organizations really have no business if they are telling people, pray for this thing to go. If we had a serious, hard-nosed CEO for a legal practitioner, criminal practitioner, as the CEO of EACC, he will be understanding where the gaps in law are and where the gaps in the judicial making decisions are and where the gaps in investigations are. Two, when you see them tell you that they want to bar people, because they have had Honorable Andai, my good friend here, Atandi, somebody said Honorable Atandi stole chicken when he was a student. That's what the CEO is telling us. As you have had somebody stole chicken from somebody's poultry another day, will you employ him? He knows very well that the Constitution in Article 50 and 49 has a presumption of innocence until proved guilt. Why are we talking about politicians as if they do not enjoy that right? Everybody in this country is innocent, and the only person who proves anybody guilty is a court of law.
Yeah.
It can't be EACC. It can't be the DPP. And that is why I totally agree with my good friend here, Honorable Atandi, with your bill. Please bring it to us. We have the biggest, the lowest and weakest link for the fight in corruption in this country is the DPP. The DCI has done a tremendous job. A tremendous job. But what does the law say? As it is now, the charge sheet, it is only the DPP who can charge. As a critical criminal practitioner, the question is, whoever draws a charge sheet must come to court and be cross-examined. If the DPP is the one who has drawn the charge sheet, can he take the dog to be cross-examined? It is the investigator who takes the dog to be cross-examined. So, Atati, you'll have saved so many millions of money for this country, because that is where the problem is. Arrogating the office of the DPP the power to charge. Yet, he has not been the investigator. He is not a witness. Puts that office in serious conflict. Lastly, the decision of 5 judges. President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto were sued when they had been charged at the ICC. Civil society went to court and said they cannot contest for the presidency of 2013. It was the 5-judge bench, and that a decision that has never been challenged or varied or appealed against was clear. You cannot stop anybody from aspiring to run into a political office until all avenues of appeal are exhausted.
Okay.
All avenues. That is the law of this country. That's what I'm saying. The CEO for EACC needs some basic training on law, that you cannot see somebody having a big nose and say this is a corrupt person. You must produce evidence, convict that person at the high court, at the lower court. You go to the high court, you still uphold that conviction. You go to the Court of Appeal, uphold that conviction. You go to the Supreme Court.
But Omari, you know it takes too long. I mean,
it is not about...
So what if that conviction comes after the election?
It has never been about it takes too long. It is the procedures globally. Cases don't just proceed, and that is why we opted to be governed by the rule of law. We had the mandate on the 27th of August 2010, when President Kibaki retired, signed the constitution and said the DPP can arrest you and take you to community prison. We never chose that way. We chose the way of the rule of law.
Okay.
We chose the way of a modern democracy. We chose the way of getting somebody under Article 47 a fair hearing. We chose the way where parliamentarians are equal before the court of law. But we never chose the way where now, I hope, Mr. Mheshimiwa, you put it straight, that you've seen now the DPP has said that you cannot charge senior people like politicians until he approves. Really, Trevor? The CEO EACC is telling you they won't fight, and they have arrogated themselves powers, the CEO of EACC and the DPP, that it is only the two who will decide who will be charged. Trevor, today, your villagers on a border. The police arrest them, they are charged on the spot. The DPP does not need to approve for their charging. So I have a serious problem with the DPP's office because the war against corruption. The DCI has done a tremendous job. There was a report that was brought to Parliament. You have that annexure of the number of cases rotting in the DPP's office. What has happened even to the KEMSA issue? To date, the DPP has not come out of leave to sign, to approve. Are we likely to be having optics from the EACC and the DPP to the detriment of citizens of this country? Mheshimiwa, that bill publishes it a lot because it keywords the question. Once the investigators have investigated, the burden to convict or to acquit is not in the DPP's office. It is in the court. Let the court, the judiciary, hear, Trevor, evidence against Senator Wamatangi, because if Senator Wamatangi there's no evidence against him, the court will acquit him. But the duration that the trial will take you said 6 months. It is not practical worldwide. It can never work because the same budget, Parliament has refused to give judiciary the budget to employ judges.
I'll come back to you, Tandi, and talk about that bill that you're raising in just a bit. But let's
Trevor, I think let me first warn my AG that it is a good time that he starts to practice to call me his president.
It's only because you and I've now said my incoming president, currently Senator Matangi. Thank you very much.
Start practicing. And then we agree, AG, that as we said earlier, I think when it comes to dealing with some of the matters we'll encounter in our regime that are legal, there are certain instances when we have to sit down and agree first before you go out. and this could be one of them in my thinking. Because Trevor and AJ, I believe we can agree on this. You know, what we are talking about, essentially, we are talking about the integrity process, the cleanliness of the podium or pedestal upon which a leader will stand when he is leading, for example, a county. And this matter came up largely as the DPP, as the CEO of EACC was saying on the question of leadership of governance. And you know, Trevor, the legitimacy, the question of legitimacy, the question of how responsibility is shouldered by those that have assumed those offices by a political process. How will it be? Should it be addressed? And I would agree with AG on one issue only, on one side only, that when it comes to the legal process, the process whereby you charge somebody or somebody is accused before conviction, via that judicial process itself, where you take somebody to a police station or to the DCI, you grill them, they write a statement, then you go and take them to a court of law. Then our law envisages that that person will be adjudged guilty once he has been convicted through that due process. And that is the only time when you can say that this person is guilty. But we have now the second consideration, which is contained clearly in our Supreme Law, AG. And this is, how do you mete out the question of settlement of sins that have been committed by somebody who has assumed an office via a political process, who is a beneficiary of a political system that has given him the responsibility. And this is where we have to be clear. And I believe that question must be answered in this way, Trevor.
Yeah.
And AG, this is contained even in judgments of the Supreme Court itself.
Yes.
That, you know, the process of impeachment of a governor,
yes,
which is supposed to bring settlement of crimes committed by a holder of an office who has assumed that office politically, is the process that is
impeachment.
That is, you know, in the eyes of the law, envisaged to take care of those kind of sins. And so we will have to make a serious decision. And that is why I would agree largely with what the EACC CEO is saying, that if it has gotten through the process up to a point whereby a governor, for example, has gotten to the tail end of the process of adjudging, is he a politically guilty, you know, in quotes, person in that process to the point that he has been impeached, then you cannot negate the question that that person stands judged by that process itself. Because otherwise, why do we have it in our constitution that you assume office, that this is what you're supposed to do? The process of judging whether you still hold that office with integrity and legitimacy, that if your county assembly brings charges against you, that they listen to those charges, they forward them to the Senate. The Senate sits and listens to those charges. And if they are upheld following that process of law, and then it is judged that Omari, the AG, is guilty, has been impeached today, you cannot, at the end of that process, claim that you can stand there and say that you are clean. That now you can go and start running for office or whatever. Yeah. And that is why you find most of the governors, because of the thinness of that line, you know, the ambiguity of the nexus between the two, that is why you find that governors have been running to court now to go and get a second cleansing. Once the political process of adjudging their guilt has come to the tail end, they will now cross over to the other side and now say, can we be protected from this side that says that now I must be judged guilty through the conviction of using a court process? And this is where we'll have to make a decision, I believe, as a country, and say, then why don't we sit down and then strike away and remove from our political process and in our constitution the process of impeachment of governors who are erroneous. But otherwise, you see, for example, by dint of the fact that even the decisions that will bring these people finally to court are made by people who are politically appointed, like MCAs. And that is why I believe our constitution makers had to think it out and decide that if then this starts within you assuming office, being given the office by a party, and then the party comes and campaigns for you, and then you get elected, you become a governor, you work with your MCAs, and you're supposed to hold integrity of that office. And then at the end of the process, the same MCAs have said that you are not doing your things right. Of course, using other processes that have proved that, then there must be sense in what we are saying in law. You know, so I think where we are losing it is because if you look at every governor who has come and become impeached or gotten impeached, and I would give an example, for example, the case of governor for Embu, Governor Wambora. You remember during the first term, he was impeached within a few, I think the first year. And then they went to court. At the end of the day, he ended up being governor for the entire period, came and ran for office, is still the governor today. And you'd be asking yourself, for that one term, then what is the essence? Why don't we then just say in law that what you would do is if you want to convict a governor, take them to court, let the court decide. Once the court has decided, through an expeditious process, then that person is guilty. So I think, AG, even as you give counsel, when you come to sit in my government in those coming years, these are some of the resolutions that we would expect that you'll be coming up with well thought out ideas. But otherwise, we are going to be sabotaging our own law. And we have to say to people loudly and very clearly that when you go and hold public office, you are entrusted with public resources. You cannot look for loopholes in law. You cannot look for areas to go and take cover and use provisions of law to run away with public resources in millions, and then at the end of the day you find that these guys are still continuing to enjoy public funds that they plundered. All right, gentlemen, we run out of time here, but let me take some feedback and then come back to all of you for closing remarks as we wind up on this. Let's see what you're saying online. Let's bring up the first one. Okelo Mwalimu says Mount Kenya voting block is important, but it is not the only block. Whoever spends over 80% of his or her campaign time in the mountain is destined for a resounding defeat. For him or her, it will end in premium tears, okay? Engineer Lazaro says Mount Kenya business community has already spoken. The influence and international community aspects can't be ignored, okay? Kiprono Abraham says the current political discussions is derailing our objective of fighting tribalism. This regionalism is not a good thing for this country. Let's pause there for a bit and let's go back to Kiprono Abraham. And I think this is a misconception, and let me hear it from you guys. When we talk about people campaigning in different places because the numbers are as is, are we referring to tribalism, or is this just making this, lowering this discussion? Because facts are facts, numbers are numbers.
Actually, that's why I said, in your own house, you have your wife and children. They are all kisses. They don't vote as kisses. Neither will they vote as a family. It is a serious misnomer, and that is why I told him to tell Baba, and I don't know where William Ruto's people are, we are going to have a new generation that doesn't even know kissing. Okay. We are having a new generation that don't even know who Mau was. We have a new generation that only looks at the digital aspect of a job, food, a salary, and how to have a phone. So if the messaging is still that tribal, if the messaging is still that Nyanza, and for the benefit of Honorable Atandi, there is nothing called Nyanza. There is either Luo-speaking counties or Kisi-speaking counties. There are Kikuyu-speaking counties, Meru-speaking counties. There's nothing called the central. The province has left. This hangover we have never agreed to move away from. Compartmentalization and regimentization of people in terms of a tribe. Yeah. I asked the other day why even the police, when they are taking a statement from witnesses, they are saying Kisi, adult. Are you getting the point? Yeah. Why are we, even in the national ID, still identifying Kenyans by their tribes?
Okay. So Trevor.
Very brief,
I think there's nothing wrong with belonging to a tribe.
Yeah.
And when you talk about regionalism, it's one of the most positive statements you can make. And especially when you are canvassing politics, we must be alive to the regional issues.
Yeah.
Because when we go to Mount Kenya, they have their own issues which they need successive governments to address.
Yeah.
So we will continue to engage in those regional conversations.
Okay.
And I want to tell you, Trevor, even if you look at the established democracies in Africa, I like to compare our democracies, our party with the ANC party in South Africa.
Yeah.
If the strength of the ANC party is in the KwaZulu-Natal region, that is the region where President Zuma comes from, that's also the region where the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, comes from. It does not mean that they are not in other regions, but there's a region where the party is more stronger. So even now, our parties, they have regional, strengths. So it will not be wrong if we have a party that is very strong in Mount Kenya.
Yeah.
That's where it is dominant.
Okay.
And anybody who wants to win the support from that region will have to engage with that party and then they form a coalition.
Okay.
That is how we should go.
All right.
And if a party is strong in a particular region, maybe that party is championing the issues of that region. That's why it is more dominant in that region.
Okay.
So the questions of tribalism, we cannot run away from them. We belong to tribes, and I'm still a Luo.
Yeah.
Even when I run for president, I run for president of Luo in future.
Okay.
I will not change my tribe.
Okay.
I think if you distill it down to tribalism, we would lose the discussion, or rather it would not be true in the first place, Trevor. If you look at, for example, when you talk about the Mount Kenya region, there is no single community in this country, in Kenya, that is not represented within the Mount Kenya region. And not even within that region, come even to our sub-counties or counties. If you go to our sub-counties like Juja, you go to Thika, you go to Rilo, you come to Kiambu, wherever you go to Nyeri, you find Kisis and Kalenjins and whatever, and Kurias. All of us are in those regions. So it's no longer really, when you talk about regions, that you're talking about tribes.
Yeah.
But however, regions have a lot of demographics that would need to be considered when you're talking about, for example, interest in politics, about development, about what kind of agreements would you have with those people, about what their interests are. That's why you have arid areas.
Yeah.
That you have the coastal region with its unique aspects. That is why you have highlands and what they do. Because, the interest of the people who are within Limuru or within Kericho are different from the interest of somebody who is in Garissa.
Yeah.
Because you tell the person in Garissa about how you're going to empower them, to make sure that they have got well-bred livestock, that's their livelihood, and so on and all those other things. And you tell the people in Limuru about their tea.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? So it's really not about necessarily being tribal. When you're talking about the regions, we are saying that when you have visited that place, you need to understand as a reader all your people, wherever they come from, and what their unique interests are.
Okay. Yeah. Let's finish up on the feedback that's coming through. I hope that is clear. Kiprono Abraham, let's go to the next one. Mwangi Gatundu says Mount Kenya region doesn't belong to the tycoons used by Raila to popularize himself. Mount Kenya belongs to the voters who are the majority. Okay. Engineer Ogega says the billionaires have a better solution for the downtrodden. Easy credit and jobs. Handouts can't save the mama mbogas. Okay. Jacob Abere says it's political lifetime. Mount Kenya voting bloc is swinging votes. Any presidential candidate has a share of a pie. So whoever shall engage political auctioneers like Arua, Kiunjuri, Kavogo, and Kiraitu at end of 2022 ballot day shall triumph. Okay. Jogi Ahmed says Raila has always been well received in Mount Kenya. He even manages to get quite substantial votes, but in the end, the real voters will decide. IG Nate says parties have structures and processes, so Wanjigi cannot open parallel ODM offices and staff them with his Zions. That is a recipe for anarchy. Let him work within existing party structures. You don't leave a name, but say cabinet mini reshuffle was meant to cut DP Ruto influence in the cabinet. The president was sending a warning shot. And Linemo says the question about integrity and what people don't want to address, I will give you an example. Wario was accused for Rio scandal. The president still transferred him. He was happy with him. Now you have the answer. He will not be there. Okay, the will is not there. Okay, let's take closing remarks, and I'll start with you, Honorable Atandi, closing remarks on this discussion, because we're running out of time now.
Thank you very much, Trevor. As I said, I've sponsored a bill which is going to give prosecution powers to about 6 government agencies so that they are able to do their own prosecution, because there are some issues that are very technical that the DPP does not have the required experts to prosecute them in courts. So we want to give them those powers so that they can do their own prosecution, so that they can win those cases, because they are frustrated. There are cases within KRA, for instance, that will never go through because the people doing the prosecution are not experts.
Yeah.
There are issues on Immigration Act. There are issues on Energy Act. There are issues on wildlife. We want to give them power so that they can be able to do their own prosecution and win those cases. That is one. Two, I want to say that the ODM party, the largest political party in East Africa, my beloved party, has published its financials on page 8 of Nation. And I want to urge Kenyans to go through this and see.
It did what?
We published our financials on page 8 of Nation today.
Page 8?
Yes. So I want to urge Kenyans, those who are looking for a party to join, please go to page 8 and look at what ODM is doing. And I want to urge you that immediately join the party. We are the most organized party. You can see our income, you can see our expenses, well clearly explained.
Where does the income come from, Atandi?
The income comes from members' contributions.
Oh.
We receive money from government through the political parties fund, because we are a parliamentary party. We are not we are not people who want money which they do not deserve. You know, our partners in NASA wanted us to give them money, yet they did not qualify. And you can see that they claim that we had received so much money on their behalf. We did not. So I think this is very important, and I want to thank the leadership of my party for doing all this. And I know we are going to win more votes because of this. And lastly, I want to say that Kenya, we have 8 months to the general elections, and everybody. The politicians are running across the country looking for support. I want to call for politicians to play politics of. We play the politics. We don't need to play the politics of hate speech.
Yeah.
Because even to date, we have politicians who are still playing the politics of hate speech. Let us avoid this. Let us remember that Kenya is one country and the country belongs to us. After the elections, we are going to go back to our own careers and our own jobs.
Okay.
I hope that in the end, Baba will become the president. Thank you.
Omari, closing remarks.
First and foremost, I will talk to Baba directly from Citizen TV that you deserve to be returned back as a member of parliament.
Thank you.
One, in terms of the level of patriotism to your party. Others cannot walk around saying, I belong into this party. Those are the type of legislators that I always want to work with. Number two, I also support you for them to give you a direct ticket, because the bill that you have presented to decentralize prosecution and give specialized agencies powers to prosecute. Because as I've said, the parking lot of all cases when they come from the DCI is at the DPP's office. So that one, you get it very clearly, and that is the only way we can do with it. Let the DCI prosecute, let the DCI charge, let the KRA do their stuff. Remember, these things were there when prosecution was in the hands of the Attorney General. Yeah. He had the powers to delegate and gazette those prosecutors. Yeah. Under the current regime, everything has been brought to one office, and that is why the criminal justice system is crumbling. So, based on those two positions,
yes,
Honorable Atandi, you get my vote. If I go to vote in Alego Usonga, the problem, I'll be voting in West Mogrango for Steve Mogaka. So, but you can compete with him. Thank you very much, and viewers, we hope next time we'll do other works.
Okay, Wabatangi?
Yes, I think, Trevor, I want to make my closing remarks to congratulate. I think the action yesterday taken to stop this arrangement whereby we were having Pakistani nationals coming to lodge in Kenya for a long time on their way to Saudi. it also got me a bit worried.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, how can we put up such a big fight against COVID and put in so many measures and become a sterling performer in this fight, and then we sabotage ourselves by bringing people en masse in such big numbers without visa requirements. And in the first place, you never know, most of these guys will come. We already have job problems with our youths.
Yeah.
So you allow these people to come into the country in those thousands of numbers. Then they will melt in thin air when they're here. Some of them could be infected with those diseases and so on, like COVID. And then, they're just here without proper control. So I think that was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So let it be that way, so that the country is known, even when people outside, that when you're coming here, we are strict and serious about control and health of our nationals.
Yeah.
I think lastly is to say, I believe now that as we head towards the elections, and you've seen the debate we had today, mostly 80% or 90% really is around politics and political leadership. And the more we move towards a tolerant society with clear ideals of what we want to do, because we are just a few months to the elections, the better we are going to be. This country is looking upon the people who have been given the responsibility of leadership this time. And I've had my AG there has done a good job of trying to win a direct ticket for Honorable Atandi.
Yeah.
Yes.
He should leave party politics now.
So I just wanted to say, on the basis of good credentials, we should have a system of leadership, because during the past times when we've doing our elections, one of the biggest problems is nomination process.
Yeah.
Thus we find that the fellows with power, fellows with most hooligans that they can hire, people who are cunning and coy are the ones who get into those offices. If we would have a nomination process that allows people who have a sterling performance, people who have the credentials to be the ones to offer themselves, and I'm not saying just one, it should be competitive, of course, then I think that we will be moving closer towards having a responsible leadership, such that we don't have a case again like when the AG thinks that all politicians are rotten. Yeah. Because that is what permeates in most of Kenyans' minds. Okay. But otherwise, I want to wish Kenyans a good morning and a good day. Yep. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
The best and God's blessings.
Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Senator Kiambu Majority Whip, Honorable Samuel Atandi, Member of Parliament, Alego Songa, and Danstan Omari, Advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for making time this morning. And Dr. Alfred Mutua, Governor for Machakos, in absentia. He had to leave early because he was traveling. And most important, thank you for all the feedback that we've seen. Coming up next is cooking tips, and I'm on the other side. Today I've decided that I'm hungry, so I'm locking everybody out so that I get to taste the food, right? See you in a bit.